Most entrepreneurs and business owners build products and services that their customers say they want. The problem is, people don't buy what they say they want. They buy based on completely different psychological triggers they're not even aware of. I learned this the hard way. I built what I thought was the perfect offer. I talked to people, everyone said they wanted it, but then when I launched it, almost nobody bought. Turns out, people weren't lying to me. They genuinely thought they wanted what I was offering. But when it came time to pull out their wallet, their behavior told a completely different story. That's why in this video, I'm gonna walk you through 5 psychology patterns that reveal what your customers will actually buy and exactly how to uncover those patterns in your own business. So here's what most business owners do when they wanna understand their market. They send out surveys, they ask people what features they want, they run focus groups, they post in Facebook groups asking, would you buy this? Now, all of that does sound logical and it gives you information. The problem is, it gives you the wrong kind of information. Let me give you an example from my own business. Years ago, I was thinking about creating a course on Facebook advertising, so I did what seemed really smart at the time. I just asked my email list what they wanted to learn about Facebook ads. The responses were pretty clear. People wanted to know about targeting and ad creative and campaign structure, all the technical stuff. So I built the entire course around those topics. But when I launched it, sales were mediocre at best. So then I looked at the content that people were actually engaging with on my YouTube channel. The videos that got me the most watch time, the most comments, the ones where people actually reached out asking to work with me. They weren't about targeting. They weren't about ad creative either. They were about business strategy. How to know if you're even ready for ads, how to structure your offer so ads could work, how to build a funnel that would actually convert traffic into sales. People told me they wanted technical ad training, but what they responded to, what they were willing to spend money on, was strategic business guidance. And that, my friend, is the psychology gap. What people consciously think they want versus what they unconsciously respond to and actually buy. And this happens in every single market, every single industry, every single day. People will say something like, price doesn't matter to them, and then they'll go and buy the cheapest option. Or they'll claim that they want a comprehensive full solution, then turn around and buy the simple Band-Aid quick fix. Or they'll tell you that they're ready to invest in themselves, then they never pull the trigger. And again, this isn't because they're lying. It's because they genuinely don't know what's gonna get them to take action. So, if you can't just ask people what they want, what do you do instead? Well, you look for behavioral patterns. You watch what they actually do and not just what they say they'll do. So here are the 5 psychology patterns I look for in every market research process. Pattern number 1, what questions they ask versus what features they claim to want. When you ask people what features matter to them, they're gonna give you rational answers. Things like, I need this to integrate with my CRM. It has to have reporting capabilities. Mobile access is important. But when you look at what questions people actually ask during the sales process, it's completely different. I've analyzed hundreds, probably thousands of sales conversations across different businesses over the past decade. The prospects who end up buying almost always ask questions about 3 things. How does this actually work in practice? Because they want to see the process and the methodology. What happens if this doesn't work for me? Because they're looking for risk reversal, even if they claim that they're confident. And how long before I see results? Because they want timeline clarity, even if they said that they're playing the long game. And these questions are powerful because they reveal the real psychology. The fact that people buy based on confidence in the process, the fear of wasting money, and desire for quick proof that this was the right decision for them. When you build your offer around those psychological needs, instead of just adding features that people claim that they want, everything changes. Pattern number 2, what content they consume versus what topics they say interest them. This one's huge. If you create any kind of content for your business, you've got access to incredible market research data, and most people just ignore it completely. The key is to look at what content people actually engage with. Not just views or clicks, but what they watch all the way through, what they comment on, what they share, and what topics show up when people reach out to work with you. I've got years of YouTube analytics data, and there's a very clear pattern here. The videos that I think are gonna perform well based on what people ask me about usually don't. The videos that actually drive business conversations are often topics I almost didn't make because I assumed that nobody cared. For example, I once made a video about the psychology of pricing, and I thought it was gonna get decent views because people always ask me about pricing strategies. But in the end, it got okay traffic, but nothing that special. Then I made a video about why most businesses fail at marketing, and I almost didn't publish it because I thought it was too negative and too basic, kind of stuff that everybody should already know, right? Well, that video drove more qualified leads and client conversations than almost anything else I'd created that entire year. The psychological insight here is that people say they want tactics and strategies, but what they actually respond to is validation that their struggles are normal and that there's a clear reason that things haven't worked out for them yet. Pattern number 3, how long they actually take to decide versus how fast they say that they decide. Everyone wants to believe that they're a fast decision maker. People are going to tell you, when I see the right opportunity, I move quickly. Then you look at the actual buying behavior, and at least for large purchases, most people often take weeks or sometimes even months to decide. This matters for market research. A lot, because it tells you what kind of nurture process you actually need. For example, if people tell you that they decide fast, well, you might build a high-pressure, close-quick sales process. Then you wonder why your close rate is terrible. When I started tracking how long it actually took from first contact to purchase for my absolute best clients, I discovered they were taking 30 to 60 days on average, even though most of them told me on our first call, I'm ready to get started now. Again, they weren't lying. They genuinely felt ready. But their behavior showed they needed time to convince themselves, research other options, talk to other people, come back, read more content, and then finally make the purchase. When I restructured my entire sales process to serve that actual psychology instead of trying to create urgency and close fast, my conversion rates improved significantly. We're talking double. Pattern number 4. What objections predict purchase versus what objections predict abandonment? All right, this is one of those counterintuitive psychological patterns that changes everything once you see it. Most sales training teaches you to overcome objections. In other words, someone says, I need to think about it, or the timing isn't great, and you're supposed to have a response that gets them past it. Like, if not now, then when? But when you analyze actual buying behavior, you discover something interesting. Certain objections actually predict that someone is going to buy. Certain objections predict they're never going to buy. Objections that often lead to purchases are things like, I'm not sure I can do this, or what if I don't get results, or is this going to work for my specific situation? These are fear-based objections. The person wants to buy, they're just scared. And when you address these with proof and process and clarity and risk reversal, they often convert. On the other hand, objections that almost never lead to purchases are things like, I need to talk to my business partner, or I want to do more research, or can you send me some information? These are avoidance objections. The person isn't scared that they're going to fail. They're just not interested, and they're trying to be polite. When you do market research by analyzing patterns in your sales conversations, you stop wasting time on people who aren't going to buy, and you start focusing on the psychological needs of the people who actually will. Pattern number 5. What they do immediately after buying versus what they told you they needed. This is the most revealing psychological pattern of all. What do your best customers actually do with your product or service once they have it? Most business owners and entrepreneurs build features based on what people say they're going to use. Then those features sit untouched while customers use something completely different. I see this pattern repeatedly across all kinds of different businesses. You sell someone on outcome X, they buy because of feature Y, then they actually get value from component Z that you barely even mentioned. This tells you what to lead with in your marketing. Not what people say they want or even what they buy for, but what they actually use and get results from. And when you restructure your messaging to lead with the thing that people actually get value from, everything about your marketing becomes way more effective because you're speaking to real psychology instead of stated preferences. Let me show you exactly how these 5 patterns work together, though with a real example from my own business. A few years back, I was trying to figure out whether to create a course and a training on YouTube growth or a course on sales funnels. Both topics seemed like they would sell well because these were topics that a lot of people were asking me about. So I started looking at the behavioral data instead of just listening to what people said they wanted. Pattern number 1, questions they asked. I went through my last 50 sales conversations and looked at what prospects actually asked about before they bought anything from me. The YouTube questions were all about tactics. What's the best upload schedule? Or how do I optimize my thumbnails? Or what kind of camera should I buy? The funnel questions, though, completely different. How do I know if my offer is even good enough to build a funnel around? Or what if I build this whole thing and nobody buys? Or how do I know what to say at each stage? The YouTube questions were all surface level. The funnel questions revealed deep uncertainty and fear about whether their business would actually work. Pattern number 2, content they consumed. I looked at my YouTube analytics for videos that led to actual client conversations, not just views. My tactical YouTube videos got a lot of views, but rarely led to anyone reaching out. My funnel strategy videos, on the other hand, got fewer views, but way more qualified consultation requests. Pattern number 3, decision timeline. I tracked how long it took from first contact to purchase for both types of inquiries. People asking about YouTube tactics wanted quick answers and rarely converted to paying clients. People asking about funnels took 30 to 45 days, but when they bought high-ticket services. Pattern number 4, objection patterns. YouTube people seem to object with, I need to try this myself first, or let me see if this works. Again, those are avoidance objections. Funnel people objected with, I'm not sure I can pull this off, or what if I waste money building something that doesn't work? Those are fear objections that predict purchases when addressed properly. Pattern number 5, what they actually used. This was the kicker. I looked at clients who'd bought either type of service from me in the past. The YouTube clients would typically implement some of the tactics, get some quick results, but then disappear. The funnel clients, though, would work with me long-term, refer other people, and become great long-term clients. Long story short, based on all 5 patterns, the data was very clear. People said they wanted YouTube tactics, but they actually bought funnel strategy. The psychology was completely different. So I built the funnel course, and it outsold everything else I'd created by a very significant margin and led to way more high-value client relationships, many of which I still have today. And that's what happens when you stop listening to what people say that they want and start watching what they actually do. So those are the 5 psychology patterns to look for. But now let me walk you through the practical process for uncovering them in your own business. Step 1, collect behavioral data, not just opinions. The first thing you've got to do is stop asking people, what do you want? And start tracking what they actually do. So here's exactly where to find this data and how to organize it, whether you've got an existing business or you're launching a brand new one from scratch. Let's start with you already have an existing business first. Here, you're going to want to pull together data from these 5 sources. First, sales conversations. Go through your CRM or email and review every conversation from the last 90 days. What questions did prospects ask? What objections did they raise? What made them finally decide to buy or to walk away? Now, if you don't have this documented, start recording it now. Create a simple spreadsheet with columns for prospect name, questions asked, objections raised, outcome, and timeline. Next, customer support inquiries. What are people asking after they buy? What features are they trying to use? What problems are they trying to solve? This tells you what they actually value versus what you sold them on. Most business owners completely ignore this absolute goldmine of data. After that, content engagement. Again, don't just look at views or likes. What you want to do is look at what content that people consume before they reach out or before they buy. If you've got YouTube analytics, check the traffic source for your contact page or product page. If you're using email, look at which emails get the highest click-through rate from people who later become customers. If you're posting on social media, look at what content generates actual DMs or meaningful conversations, not just random engagement. Then, email metrics. Don't just track open rates. Track which emails get responses. Track which subject lines correlate with people who later buy versus people who just open and then delete. Track what topics generate replies versus what gets ignored. I keep a running spreadsheet of every email I send with open rate, click rate, and whether anyone from that email ended up buying anything within the next 60 days. This allows me to repeat winning formats and continue to tweak losing formats to turn them into winners. Then buying patterns. Look at your payment processor data. How long from first contact to first purchase? How much do people initially spend versus spend over time? And what's the gap between first purchase and second purchase? Are your best customers the ones who bought immediately or the ones who took their time deciding? Now I appreciate that's a lot of stuff, so here's how to organize this data. Start by creating one master spreadsheet. Seriously, this doesn't have to be complicated. For your columns, mark them as customer/prospect name, source, which is how they found you, first contact date, questions asked, content consumed, time to purchase, purchase amount, current status, and some random notes. For rows, well, keep it to just 1 row per person, or if you've got a lot of customers, 1 row per pattern that you notice. Because we're looking for patterns. We're not tracking every single data point. And after about 20 to 30 entries, patterns do start to become pretty obvious. Now, if you're using a CRM like High Level, this becomes 10 times easier because you've already got all of those conversations and support requests and purchase timelines all in one place. You don't need fancy spreadsheets, just track the real behaviors and let the patterns show themselves. But more on that later. Because next, let's quickly go over how this works if you're starting a new business without your own customers yet. And for the record, this part is just as valuable if you already have an existing business, as it can help to prove that you're on the right track, as well as open your eyes to new opportunities that you may not have noticed before. The first thing to understand is that no matter where you are in your business journey, you can still do this research by analyzing other businesses in your market. So find 5 to 10 competitors or similar businesses. Look at their content, what gets the most engagement versus what appears to drive business. Read through their reviews and testimonials on Google or Facebook or Yelp or wherever they're active. What do customers actually say after buying? What problems are they currently solving? What expectations were exceeded or completely missed? Then join Facebook groups or other online communities where your target market hangs out. Don't post, just watch for 2 to 3 weeks. What questions do people ask repeatedly? What topics generate the most discussion? What problems are people trying to solve? More importantly, when someone does ask for recommendations, what specific things are people mentioning in their replies? Those are worth paying attention to because those are real buying triggers. Then look at successful product launches or service offerings in adjacent markets. What messaging did they use? What objections did they address? What guarantees or risk reversals did they offer? You can learn a ton about market psychology psychology by watching what's already working elsewhere in other businesses and other industries and other markets. You can also use Amazon book reviews in your market. Just find the top 10 books related to what you want to sell. Then read the 3-star and 4-star reviews, not so much the 5-star ones, as the 3 to 4-star reviews tell you what people actually wanted that the book didn't deliver. That's market research gold. The goal here isn't perfect data. The goal is behavioral patterns that reveal what people actually respond to, not just what they claim to want. Step 2, look for patterns in your best customers. Now, when you're analyzing people in your market, you do not want to analyze everyone. Rather, what you want to do is focus specifically on your very best customers. Your best customers are the ones who paid the most, stayed the longest, got the best results, referred other people, were easiest to work with, all those things. So take your top 10 to 20% of customers and look for the commonalities that they have in behavior and the things that they did before they bought. Like, what questions did they ask? What content did they consume? What objections did they raise? How long did they take to decide? What made them finally pull the trigger? You know the drill. These patterns tell you what to optimize for. Not what makes someone barely interested enough to maybe buy if everything's perfect, but what makes someone actually excited to buy and become a great customer. Step 3, test the patterns against new prospects. Once you identify behavioral patterns in your best customers, test whether those same patterns predict quality in new prospects. For example, if your best customers all asked detailed questions about your process before asking about price, start tracking that in new conversations. Do prospects who lead with process questions convert better than those who lead with price questions? Or if your best customers all consumed certain types of content before buying, well, start tracking that with new leads. Do people who engage with that kind of content convert at higher rates than others? You're essentially building a psychological profile of your best customers based on behavior, then using that profile to identify and prioritize similar prospects. Step 4, build your offer around real psychology. This is where most people stop too early. They do the research, they identify the patterns, then they do nothing with it. That's right, nothing at all. The whole point of understanding customer psychology is to restructure your offer, your messaging, your sales process around what actually works. If your research shows that people need 30 to 60 days to decide, build a nurture sequence designed to do that and build it around that timeline, instead of trying to close everyone on the very first call. If your research shows that people respond to process clarity more than feature lists, then restructure your sales page with the methodology instead of random benefits. If your research shows your best customers all consume long-form educational content before buying, create more of that kind of content instead of focusing on short social posts. The psychological patterns that you uncover should change how you build and sell your offer. This is exactly why I love building everything inside of a platform like High Level, as you can tweak your messaging and build nurture automations for that 30 to 60-day decision window and instantly test what's working without duct taping together a dozen different tools. But now, let me show you the 3 mistakes that ruin most market research, even when people are trying to focus on psychology and behavior. Mistake number 1, trusting what people say they'll do. I still see this one all the time, and it's depressing. Business owner knows that he needs to do research, so he asks people, would you buy this? A ton of people say yes, so he builds it, then no one buys. What people say they'll do and what they actually do are not the same thing. The only behavior that matters is actual buying behavior. If someone says, I would definitely buy this, your next question should be, great, here's where you can buy it right now. If they don't pull out their wallet immediately, they were telling you what they wished was true, not what they'll actually do. Mistake number 2, analyzing everyone instead of best customers only. We talked about this briefly before, but it's worth mentioning again here. The patterns that drive average customers to barely buy are not the same patterns that drive great customers to enthusiastically buy. If you analyze your entire customer base together, you get watered down insights that don't help you attract more of your best people. So focus your research on the top 20% of customers and figure out what makes them different, and then build everything around that. Mistake number 3, doing research once instead of continuously. Market psychology changes. What worked 2 years ago might not work now. What your first 100 customers responded to might be different from what your next 100 customers need. Doing this kind of research isn't a one-time project. It's an ongoing process of watching behavioral patterns and testing insights and adjusting based on what's actually working, actually making sales, actually growing your business. Personally, I review this data quarterly. What content is driving conversations now? What questions are new prospects asking? What objections are coming up? How is buying behavior changing? The businesses that dominate the markets aren't the ones who did great market research once. They're the ones who continuously stay connected to actual customer psychology. And if you want a system that helps you capture all those patterns automatically, from tracking conversations to following up with leads, I'll put a link to an extended free trial of High Level down in the description below the video so you can see how it works in your own business. And if you want to go deeper on understanding customer psychology, I've got a video linked up right here breaking down the dark psychology techniques that don't just reveal but actually drive buying decisions. So feel free to tap or click that now. I'll see you in there in just a second.